I told you that I was going to skip over the complicated charts and graphs that I used to use to teach about monopolies. Well, it turns out I lied, kind of. Thinking this over, I decided that there were a few concepts that I really ought to explain before we look more closely at one important example of oligopoly power, the oil industry, or more specifically, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. It also occurred to me that some of you may end up using this course as a prerequisite for higher level economics courses, and you'll be expected to know something about the economics of monopoly behaviors. So, I'm going to touch briefly on production and pricing decisions in a pure monopoly, and then I'll move on. There will be a few extra credit questions about this on the test, but if the graphs I'm about to show you seem too complicated, if they make your brain hurt, you can blow off these extra credit questions and still do well on the test and in the course. So with that lead up, in a perfectly competitive market firm, I hope you recall, demand is simply a horizontal line at the market price. The firms are all price takers. But if a monopoly controls an entire industry, which is the definition, then the demand curve for that industry is also the firm's demand curve. And even monopolies have to obey the law of demand. As the price goes up, consumers will be willing and able to purchase less of even a monopolist product. How much less, of course, depends on the elasticity of demand. But this means that for a monopolist, unlike a perfectly competitive producer, marginal revenue is not the same as price. This is actually easier to see from an example. Let's say that President Obama has granted me a monopoly to sell goop, or just as implausibly, that goop is a natural monopoly. It costs so much to enter the goop market that no other firm would be tempted to get in on the goop game. So, privileged monopolist that I am, I still confront the law of demand. If I can price my goop at $6,000 a ton, I can sell 1 ton of the stuff and make a total revenue of $6,000. And of course, these are completely made up numbers. If I reduce my price to $5,000 in this imaginary world, I can sell 2 tons. So my total revenue goes up to $10,000. My marginal revenue, the increase in the amount I take in to my cash register, is $4,000. Note that that is less than the price. So here's a marginal revenue chart for catfish production. If catfish production were a monopoly, this would be the marginal revenue for the firm. And this is a graph of the catfish market, again, assuming that it's a monopoly market, which makes the same point. Marginal revenue is less than price for the entire industry or market. And when one firm is the industry, then marginal revenue for the monopoly firm is less than price. This takes forever to build. Let's see if we can get those lines in. Okay, finally. And you see that marginal revenue falls below demand. So why does it matter? Because the profit maximizing rule remains the same. A firm produces to the point where marginal cost, the cost of producing 1 more unit, equals marginal revenue, the amount 1 more unit will bring into my cash register. That's true even when marginal revenue is not equal to price, which is why I confusingly used both the terms marginal revenue and price when I was talking about competitive markets, even though in competitive markets, marginal revenue is always the same as price. Okay, so here's the squirrely graph. If this is a graph showing an entire competitive market, then producers will produce at point E, where demand equals marginal cost or supply. $9 then becomes the market price that every competitive producer has to live with. It becomes marginal revenue for every firm. So assuming this is a competitive market, the entire industry will produce 5 baskets per hour, let's say 5,000 baskets to make it a little more reasonable. But suppose instead that this is a monopoly market. One firm controls the entire industry. Under those circumstances, marginal revenue is less than price. And so the profit maximizing point of production actually becomes small letter d, where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. That means that the monopolist only produces 4,000 baskets per hour instead of the 5,000 baskets per hour that a competitive market would produce. The price the monopolist can charge, however, is big letter D, since consumers are willing and able to purchase 4,000 baskets at that price, which is $10 instead of $9. So monopoly producers will produce less at a higher price, following profit maximizing strategy. And that's a reason why we regulate monopolies. Monopolies also earn a higher profit. So look at the difference between price and average total cost in the competitive market, which is not, by the way, in long-term equilibrium because price is not equal to the lowest possible average total cost. On this graph, that difference between price and average total cost looks like about $1. So multiplied by 5,000 baskets, that comes to a profit of $5,000 per hour for the competitive market. For the monopolist, the difference between price and average total cost is $2. Multiplied by a quantity of 4,000, that comes to a profit of $8,000 per hour. Now you're going to see the profits build here. That's why you want to grow up to be a monopolist, and why monopolies are not good for consumers or economic efficiency. Okay, I'm done. I am posting this PowerPoint on Moodle so that anyone who's interested can study it further. Take a look at the squirrely graph. The same points are explained in much more detail in Chapter 7 of your textbook and in the short podcast on monopoly market structure that I posted. All you need to know for the test is that the profit maximizing point of production for any firm is the point where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. But now you also know that marginal revenue isn't always the same as price. Again, I will put some questions about the squirrely graph on the Unit 3 test, but they will count as extra credit points, and they will be weighed double, by the way, so it may be worth your while to look into this further. But rather than dwell any longer in the weeds of marginal revenue and marginal cost curves, I'd like us to return to the issue of cartels that we first explored in our jelly bean cartel exercise. I mentioned at the time that the game was based on the experience of OPEC, or the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. OPEC's strategy has been to keep prices high by reducing output. It has recently, however, reversed this strategy and allowed gas production to keep rising and prices to keep falling. So what's up with that? And is this good news as good as it seems? And that's the topic for the rest of the class. We're going to start with a short, straightforward, and not very exciting BBC News video about what's up with OPEC and how it's trying to meet the challenge posed by new production technologies, especially hydraulic fracturing or fracking. And now you'll watch a longer and more fun Colbert report that covers some of the same territory. After you watch this video, you will complete a quiz based on the video and several readings. I've posted the readings on Moodle, but I've really inserted the relevant portions into the quiz, so you can pull up the readings for more information, but I think you have what you need built into the quiz itself. Let me just note that the videos are mostly addressing the economic impact of fracking, and there's not much doubt it's contributed to falling oil prices. But there remains a lot of controversy about the possible environmental impact of fracking, and I don't want to ignore that. I've posted some articles about this issue, and it's easy to get more information from the web. From an environmental standpoint, it seems to me to come down to a trade-off between the lower impact of natural gas as opposed to coal, which it often replaces, versus the potential effect on groundwater. But you can judge that for yourself. There is a lot of debate over whether fracking is or can be adequately regulated. Since some states are allowing it and others are banning it, we're likely to get a lot of evidence about that in the coming years. For now, I want you to watch the videos and then complete the reading quiz. I'm hoping you'll have time to finish this in class, and yes, you may work with a partner. The quiz will remain open without time limits until Thursday, April 23rd.